Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to Nursing in Style Podcast, where we have courageous conversations that empower nurses to lead, heal, and thrive both personally and professionally. Today's episode is one of those conversations. There are topics we often avoid in healthcare because they feel too personal, too uncomfortable, or too difficult to unpack. Yet many of the struggles nurses face, burnout, people pleasing, perfectionism, emotional exhaustion, and difficulty setting boundaries, and even leadership challenges can sometimes be traced back to deeper experiences that began long before we entered the profession. Today, we're joined by Shanekah Polk, family nurse practitioner, healing facilitator, founder, and CEO of Infinite Healing Well. Through her work, Shaniqua creates transformative spaces where individuals can explore healing, break generational cycles, reconnect with their authentic selves, and move toward greater clarity, alignment, and wholeness. In today's episode, Unmasked Healing Generational Trauma in the Nursing Profession, we will explore how inherited patterns and unresolved wounds can influence how nurses care for others, lead teams, navigate relationships, and show up in every area of their lives. This conversation is more than a podcast, it's an invitation to reflect, release, heal, and grow. So please help me welcome Shanekah Polk to the Nursing in Style podcast.
Th- Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Fantastic. So, Shanika, there are a lot of people that are not familiar with the term generational trauma. I know in a
Mhm.
lot of other spaces, people say that is not a thing. So, what is generational trauma to you? What does that mean to you?
For me, generational trauma is the passing down of those emotional wounds, the survival behaviors, the beliefs, the the coping strategies and unresolved pain that gets passed from one generation to the next.
The coping
Mhm.
strategies.
Coping
Not that,
strategies, coping mechanisms. Yes, ma'am.
not that all them coping strategies are good. Uh,
Right. Many of them can be toxic.
So we are going to start unpacking that and start diving a little bit deeper into understanding generational trauma. So a few more questions in this category. How do
Mhm.
many people carry inherited emotional wounds without even realizing it?
So many of us carry these wounds without realizing it because we think that's just how we are.
Hmm.
That's our norm. And oftentimes, the environment that we're in, it will reflect the same behaviors that we're accustomed to. And
Mhm.
so we may not even know that there's something wrong, especially if this is something that we learned in our childhood and have carried throughout our life. So, depending on what that toxic behavior might be or what that trauma may have been, we can carry it in us and then it show up in our life and us we not even be aware of it.
See that?
So,
So
yeah.
what are some of the common signs that generational trauma may be affecting someone's life? Give me some tangible examples.
Tangible examples. I would say overachieving. And
Really?
that's
Come on now.
overachieving, being the person who has to do everything themselves. That comes
Mhm.
from a place of safety, not being allowed, not being able to. It comes from a place of safety as well as trust, not being able to trust or allow
Mhm.
anyone else. I have to be the one to do it. People pleasing comes from a place of trauma because how many of us didn't want to get the adult upset, or you didn't want to make others upset? So we forget who we are and we morph into this person or this image of who others may want us to be. So we conform.
Mhm.
And that usually is not a good thing for us to do. But again, it's a behavior that we carry so deeply with us because it's something that we learned early on as
Mhm.
part of survival.
So some of this overachieving, could it be if we work in this perfectionism, overachieving, trying to get things done because we're not trying to deal with some of the things that's happening back here in our brains? Like, what is it when we're doing that? Because for me, I find that there's many times that I'm not truly present in the moment,
Mhm.
right? I'm not
Mhm.
truly feeling my thoughts. What am I thinking? How do I feel right now? How did that just make me feel? And so
Mhm.
when I'm in this pattern of overachieving and doing that, is it something that I'm possibly trying to suppress or ignore?
Um, I would say that it's not something that you may be intentionally trying to suppress or ignore. It's
Flip that.
underlying, it's a subconscious behavior.
Mhm.
Again, as this comes from, it typically goes back to our childhood, somewhere. When it comes to the overachieving, or people pleasing, or the perfectionism, we typically learn early on that certain behaviors are not okay. So
Mhm.
overachieving, I'm going to try to relate this to other things. So I was an overachiever in school. I used to call myself a professional student. Okay.
I hear that term.
And I had to get all A's. Now, and that it carried on through nursing school and all of that. But I know for a fact that that goes back to my childhood, because I better not have brought home anything other than an A, because the
Mhm.
mentality at that time is that you're a child, you don't have any responsibilities, so there's no reason for you to bring home a C. That is not acceptable. You're not
Mhm.
average, so those type of ideas took root.
Mhm.
Perfectionism, even as nurses, we understand perfectionism because we're nurses. So there are people whose lives are depending on us to do certain things perfectly. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of have to, especially when someone else's life is on the line. And so it can interweave into other areas of our life where things have to be perfect. Perfectionism can cause you to freeze. It'll stop you from moving forward. You may have this
Yep.
idea, but if it's, you might have this idea, you might have even a business. If you don't feel as though you're doing it perfectly, no one may ever find out about it. you
Yep.
know and so
Yep.
it goes into so many areas of our life. And again, so oftentimes we're functioning on autopilot,
Yep.
we're not even aware.
That's true. All right. So we're going to go a little deeper on the hidden impact on nurses for generational trauma.
Mhm.
So do you see connections between generational trauma and burnout, or compassion fatigue, or chronic stress?
Absolutely, all of the above.
Mhm.
um the connections between the burnout, again, it goes back to that. I have to be If you were taught as a child that your needs come last, everyone can come before you,
Mhm.
including
Yeah.
your patients. I mean, think about it. As nurses, so many of us self-sacrificing. We may not even think of it as self-sacrifice. What about taking that bathroom break when you've been holding your bladder for 3 hours, but you can't get
Right.
away from the unit? That's self-sacrifice. That's being
Yep.
taught. That's standing in the idea that someone else's needs are more important than your needs at that time.
Mhm.
So, yes, Mel. Did I
So,
answer your
and
question?
healthcare system plays in there. The patients come first. And I'm like, nurses, you are the
Mm,
first patient. Please take a moment, drink
absolutely.
some water, go to the bathroom, right? I got my first UTI when I was a brand new nurse on the floor. And I was told by another nurse, you'll get plenty more. That won't be the last. That's not normal.
And so
That's not cool.
there's a problem with that. So
Right.
it's very much like on the when you're on the airplane and they tell you
Yes.
that the mask drops down, and
Yes.
our instinct says for us to help somebody else first, help that
Hmm.
child that you're with first. But the instructions tell us to put our mask on ourselves first, because if I
Yes.
pass out while I'm trying to put my mask on my daughter Wisdom, both of
Right.
us are doomed. Now both of us are in trouble. But if I can secure myself
Hmm.
and then take care of her, but we're taught that we're taught, society has taught us, school teaches us, and you just stated the hospitals, the patient is the primary. So oftentimes we're last. And as a result of that, that's when you have this exhaustion, this
Yeah.
burnout, and it goes even deeper than that. Sometimes the exhaustion can be because of finances. And that's part, people don't look at that as part of generational trauma, but absolutely it is. How we manage money, how money comes in, how do we feel when it goes out? All of these things are patterns that we've learned stemming from childhood.
Yeah. Sometimes, there's some things that we have to wake up and say. For instance, I'll never forget one professor challenged me with this, and she said, "Why do you eat your apple pie from the skinny piece? Why you don't eat it from the other side?"
I
was like,
we were trained to do it that way.
There you go, because you were trained. And then we would get ready to eat our food, and she would always start with desserts first. And I was like, "Why are you starting with dessert first?" She said, "Sets my palate up well. And I love dessert, and I want to make sure that I save room. I mean, that's the first part that I want to be inside of me." And I'm like, okay, right. So how we perceive things, how we interpret things, sometimes we don't even challenge why do we do the things that we do, even in some brands and things that we buy. So things easily get passed down without us ever even paying attention. So why do so many nurses struggle with boundaries and self-care? Is it because of what the system says, like you've been saying? Put us last?
I would say that so many nurses struggle with boundaries and self-care because we weren't taught boundaries. If we go back, many of us can reflect and understand that I don't know about you. I'm 48 years old, but I was not taught boundaries as a child. And when we really think about this, this statement might be a bit heavy. If we were taught boundaries, some of the violations that have happened with children would have never happened, because then the child would have boundaries. They will feel secure in saying no, don't. They don't have the idea that they have to do whatever an adult tells them to just because they're an adult. And so boundaries are something that typically starts at home, and we're just getting to the point where we're starting. I didn't hear about boundaries until I was in my late 30s, and I'm 48.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
But I didn't learn about it in my late 30s. I learned about it in my late 40s that I recognized what that was. And it's been such a healthy journey for me since I've learned to do that. I've learned to say no, and that's the complete sentence. I don't need to explain that any further.
That's another thing. When it comes to the trauma thing, when it comes to the generational trauma and passing those traumas down, simple stuff like saying no.
Yeah.
Simple things like saying no. And the thing is that if I was never taught to say no, if it was not okay for me to say no as a child, how can I fast forward to being 28, 30 years old and have the confidence to say no to someone out in the world when I've spent I've spent 18 years of my life not being allowed to say no, 18 years, maybe more, and so it can be uncomfortable, and then to say no without explanation, understanding that no is a complete sentence. I am 48. I said this earlier. I'm 48 years old. And just recently this year, for the first time ever, I was able to tell a specific loved one no without an explanation behind it. And it was like a really big moment for me. This is someone who raised me. And normally I have, no, I can't because I got to do it.
Right.
No, I'm not available. And it didn't go any further. And I felt like such an adult when I did that.
Took your power back.
Absolutely. That's one of those. That's one of the areas that we give away our power, and we're not even aware most of the time.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's see. We got some people watching us live. So I want to say hi,
Hello.
Jackson. Thank you for being here with us. All right. We're going to move into unmasking the patterns. So we talked about some inherited beliefs that keep people stuck that they don't even realize. How do family narratives influence our decisions, confidence, and sense of worth? What's your thoughts on that?
Family narratives. I will. Let's start with money. As far as money, those things that's always I'm an entrepreneur, so money is one of those things that's always churning in my mind, right?
Yes.
So if you grew up in a family where you were taught that money doesn't grow on trees,
Flip that.
rich people are evil, they're dirty, they've done something underhanded in order to
Mm-hmm.
become rich. You can take in that belief subconsciously. So, and that belief subconsciously, number one, will assist in fostering that dislike of the rich. And then
Mm-hmm.
why would you become rich if you
Mm-hmm.
think that they're bad? So that's separating you from money that you have the ability to earn or come in some type of way, because you think that you're associating it with being bad. So you don't want it,
Yep.
you
Without
know,
even realizing it.
without even realizing it. I remember I used to say things when I was much younger. I used to say, I don't want to be rich. I just want to be comfortable.
I used to say the same thing.
See?
Now I
I wonder
realize,
how many people watching have said that before. I've heard
yes.
that. And now I know where I heard it from. I'm
Mm-hmm.
positive about where I heard it from. That was a repeat. I was
Yeah.
parroting and mirroring something that someone else had said. You know,
Yeah.
I used to say that I never want to be in charge. Never want to be in charge. You know, especially of a bunch of nurses. You know, and I know that statement didn't come from me either. My mom is a
Yeah.
nurse. My
Yeah.
mom is a nurse as well. And so some of these things are things that she's been a nurse since I was a small child. So I've
Mm-hmm.
heard these things over the years and I took them in. Well, that doesn't make sense for me to not want to be in charge. When you're an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be in charge. So
Yeah.
these things can get into our subconscious and they affect our behaviors. They affect the way that we function in the world. They affect the way
Mm-hmm.
that we see things, the way that we think. And so it's important for us to be at least aware of what it is that we learn. Once you start having that awareness, the beautiful thing about awareness is that awareness puts you on the road to change. Now, once you're
I,
aware of it, you can do something about it.
yeah, I often say you cannot unknow it. Once you
Right.
know and you got that
Once you,
knowledge, you can't unknow. You're going to have to do
absolutely.
something about it.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I'm going to give a shout out to my uncle Les Brown. When I was young and in college, I remember the statement you said that I don't want to be rich. I just want to be comfortable. And Les Brown was on the stage at one of these conferences, and I'll never forget. And he was like, in order to be comfortable, you're going to have to get rich. Get
Come on.
comfortable with wanting to be rich. Be
Yep.
comfortable with having choices. And Les Brown, thank you, because at that moment, you gave me my permission to just be free. Focus
Absolutely.
on my passions and know that as I'm working through my passions, as I'm delivering these things, and as I am intentional about my wealth, all of that continues to come to me and having more opportunities to make a bigger impact. And so I think we do need people having conversations with us to allow us to just be free. And sometimes our parents say things unconsciously, not realizing what those messages may really mean. So if we don't really
Absolutely.
break down what that means, we're going to walk away with these things, not realizing we'll be applying false principles in our lives.
Absolutely. And so in regards to our parents, I think that it's safe to assume that they didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, the research about programming a child's mind between the ages of 0 and 7, that's new research. That's information that has come out in the last couple of decades. So in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, this was not common knowledge. So parents wouldn't have known that everything that their child sees them do or hears them say is going dark, and they have zero discernment. The children have no discernment. They had no way of knowing that was programming them for the future. You know, some things they knew to be intentional about. Absolutely. Some things they knew to be intentional about. Others they didn't. So some of these things we learned unintentionally and we picked up from our parents without them knowing and without us knowing. And so it's not a thing about blame. Once you get on that healing journey, it's not about blame anymore. It's about acknowledging that this is what happened. This is where I am now, and this is where I'm going. So this happened. Yes, it did. But that was back then. It's no longer I don't have to allow what happened back then to interfere with where I'm going now.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Thank
So,
you.
what does it mean to unmask the parts of ourselves we've learned to hide?
Oh, I love this question. I would say to unmask the parts of ourselves that we've learned to hide is to be authentic. Be authentically you. We have all of these roles. We have all of these hats that we wear. So I'm a mom. I'm a nurse. I'm a wife. I'm a consultant. I have a business. I'm an entrepreneur. All of these different things. When I remove all of that, what's left? Who am I without all of that? Who am I without someone needing me or someone needing me to be a certain way? Who am I when you strip away all of those hats, all of that? Who am I when I'm by myself? Hello?
Ooh, clip that.
Did it freeze? Did it freeze?
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
Okay.
Who am I when I'm by myself? Keep going.
Who am I when I'm by myself? That's what that's, am I confident in myself or am I hiding certain things about myself? Or attempting to hide, because the things that we attempt to hide are usually the things that come out the loudest. So, but that's what I would say unmasking is.
So that's going to take also just spending some time, because I remember being a business owner, owning a home health agency for many, 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 many years. And then when I sold the home health agency, coming through Hurricane Katrina, coming from Louisiana to Texas, I never took time to process what happened in that transition. Going through a divorce at the same time, never took time to process losing that identity, right, of being a wife. And then selling the business, because immediately after Katrina, the next day, I just went on autopilot, worked, then started my company, work, and never, ever processed any of that. Then when I sold my home health company around 2016, it was like one day I woke up and realized, whoa, wait a minute, I no longer have that title. I don't have that title. Who am I now?
Yes.
And ooh, how am I really feeling? How did that stuff really hit me? Right.
Yes.
And so I had some time to just sit in quietness and stillness. And it was scary. It was scary. There were some things that unshook, but there was also some very beautiful things that I went, wow, I'm extra. I'm always extra, right? I can't just do regular decorations. It's got to have a little sparkle to it. It has to have a little extra to it. But I began to embrace that. See, I had to embrace that. And once I started embracing more and more of me, I felt like more and more of me showed up in the room.
Absolutely.
But without taking that time to sit without the titles to find out who am I and who was I called to be outside of the titles, it can be a bit scary and daunting for many people.
It can be. I encourage everyone to sit with themselves. At about the 30-minute mark, all of the thoughts that's racing through your mind tend to slow down. They tend to disperse and you get quiet. And when you have that, when that silence comes in, after that, that's when you start hearing your inner voice. That's when the inner voice, that's when the inner voice, and you can hear it loud as day. You'll understand what is it that you really like. What are your values? What is it that you actually value? Not what the world told you to value, what your parents, family, society, all of that. You start understanding your values. You start understanding who you are, what actually matters to you. And so I always encourage people to sit in silence, sit alone, undistracted, no phone, no radio, no nothing, and see what comes from that.
I love that. And I love that I've had my sessions with you because every time I'm with you, you always make me think to another level. Or you'll say, what made you say that? What does that mean to you? And I'm like, dang, wait, I never even thought to think about this level a little bit deeper. So I love when I get an opportunity to be with you. And I know that your coaching clients enjoy their experience with you. So let me welcome and say hi to Josh. Josh says this is a very interesting topic.
Hey,
and I'm glad, right? And I'm glad it's being discussed. Thank you, Josh. We need safe places to have these conversations, to express it, to get different perspectives, because a lot of times these thoughts and generational traumas continue to just recycle because no one is discussing it. No one is taking a little magnifying glass and let's go deeper. So let's go into the healing journey. This is your area. What does healing actually look like? How does someone know that they're actually putting themselves on the path to healing?
I would say that you know that you're putting yourself on a path to healing when you become aware of your thoughts, aware of your actions, aware of the things that trigger you, aware of your emotional lability. You know, you're on the path when if something triggers you and you're upset about it, but you can take a moment back, take a step back and say, what was it about that interaction that got me here? Like, why am I upset? Whether you're angry or furious or crying, what was it about that? Was it the words? Was it the mood? What was it? You can take that step back, and then a lot of the times you can trace it. Where did I hear this? When have I been in a similar situation and I've lost my power? I've been threatened or anything like that. When has that happened previously? You know, and so once you're becoming aware, again, aware, for me, awareness is the root of everything. So once you become aware, you can do something about it. You can pose that question. Wait a minute, hold on. Why is that upsetting me? You know, and is it worth me being upset? I'm sure that this person wasn't. You're able to start to rationalize instead of just reacting. You can be intentional instead of just responding and reacting.
So you brought up an amazing point. So when something happens to you and you asking the question, why am I responding this way? What happened? Why did that make me feel this way? It reminded me of a book that I have to point out because this book was life-changing for me. The book is called What Happened to You? And this book is Oprah Winfrey, and Dr. Bruce Perry. And God, I was not even all the way through that book, and I had to call my family, like, everybody get your copy right now, right? Because you don't even realize there could be certain scents, right? And I know I deal with this, certain scents that you smell that triggers a thought. Now, if that scent is connected to trauma, the person that's before you that has that scent, it could be triggering a trauma in you. And you'll be responding to this person in a certain way that doesn't match. So Dr. Perry points this out in his book when one of the teachers was talking with one of the kids, and when he leaned over that kid, the cologne that teacher was wearing was the same cologne that the little boy's stepdad, who used to abuse him, wore. And so the kid just started reacting toward this teacher. And he was like, I don't get it. What's happening? And you know what they were going to do? Box this kid out. He's a bad kid. You know, he can't concentrate, and this kid will end up with labels. So if you all are listening to this, What Happened to You? Get the book, review it, and start paying attention when someone offends you or something offends you. Check in with yourself,
right,
and see why did that make you feel that way. Go ahead, Shanekah, hit that question.
I was going to say the same thing. Why am I crying about this? Why do I want to fight about this? Why am I angry about this? Why am I so far from who I normally am about this conversation that I just had, or this action or behavior that a person just displayed? It's amazing that that's the example that you used. I know someone who spent her summers with a grandparent, and the grandfather's girlfriend used to whoop her. And she also drank coffee. So she would brew coffee every morning. This adult is now in her 60s, and to this day cannot stand the scent of coffee. It automatically triggers her to think about those childhood interactions. You know, and so, and you would, like you said, the child reacted and no one could understand why, not even the child. So that can happen with an adult as well. I'll give you another example. There was a study that was done on mice many years ago. And in this experiment, they took the adult mice, and every time the mice got near cherry blossom, there were cherry blossoms. So when they would go near the cherry blossoms, they would electrocute the mice, right? So fast forward several generations of mice. These New generation mice wouldn't even go near the scent.
Wait. So the new generational mice weren't exposed to that?
They were never exposed to being electrically shocked, but they wouldn't go anywhere near the cherry blossom, right? Because their ancestors had been shocked and electrocuted. And so these mice who are born 2, 3, 4 generations later, they knew it was in them to not go anywhere. They were able to sense the danger. And so that goes into epigenetics. And epigenetics is how these the traumas are being passed down. That's one of the ways that the traumas are being passed down on a genetic level, because it is passed down on a genetic level. Every trauma that, let's say, your great grandmother experienced, right? Well, your grandmother was an egg inside of her ovary at the time that your great grandmother was experiencing these traumas. So that moved into your mom, and then your mom gave birth to you. So that's dormant in you. It may not even be dormant. It's in you as well. And then the patterns from the behaviors, things such as, I have a good one for you. Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about how, so this example, let's say that you have a child and it's parent teacher day, okay? Report card pickup day. And so let's say that the mom is there getting the report card and the teacher is all the rave about the child. Oh, they're such a good listener. They like to help and volunteer. And the mom may start to automatically put the child down. Well, he doesn't do that at home, and they don't listen at home, and those types of things. Oh, this goes
I've heard it before.
Yes. And so, and so this was a safety mechanism. Because imagine being on a plantation in 1840, 50, whatever it was, and now someone is complimenting your son. The master is complimenting your son. Oh, say John is so big and strong. Well, now you're at risk for your child being taken away from you. So of course, no, he's dumb as a doorknob. He don't listen well. So you say all of these things to deter them from taking your baby. That's a survival mechanism. And then it's gotten passed down generation to generation, and it shows up in different ways, and we don't even know what the core of it is. So imagine the child overhearing all of these things that the parent is saying, and there's no context to it. Now they think that their parent feels that way about them. So again, that trauma and those cycles being passed down.
Yes. All right. So we're about to wrap this on up. So I'm going to ask you a question. What does living in alignment mean to you?
For me, living in alignment means listening to my inner voice, trusting myself, and doing what feels right for me.
All right. I like that. Now we're going to go into our rapid fire questions. You're going to answer these responses. First thought, one word type answers. One word that describes healing.
Freedom.
One myth about healing that needs to be challenged.
One word.
Go ahead if you got it.
The myth is that if you need to heal, you're broken. You're never broken. You're never broken. Ever.
Oh, that's a challenging. See, that's you go again. That's a challenging one right there. Now that's gonna have to carry on to another level of conversation. You're never broken.
You're never broken.
Practice everyone should adopt. One daily practice everyone should adopt.
Sitting in silence and self-reflection.
I like that. You said that 30-minute mark is when you start to hear the inner voice. So that's a good challenge. All right. One lesson healing taught you personally.
One lesson that healing taught me personally. Healing taught me about freedom. It taught me that I didn't even know who I was. I had no clue of who I was, my abilities. That's what I'll say. One lesson that healing taught me, healing freedom.
I like that. One message for nurses who are struggling silently.
one message for nurses who are struggling silently. First of all, I would say you're not by yourself. Don't ever think that you're by yourself. And number two is that if you're aware that you're struggling, congratulations. That just puts you on a path to healing, because awareness is not the problem. Awareness is the beginning of the solution.
Yes.
So
I
you're
love it.
starting.
I love it. So, what I want to cover here now, if a nurse is listening today and realizing that they may be carrying emotional burdens they've never addressed, what would you want them to know before we close?
I would go back to that awareness. Once you
Okay.
become aware, you can focus on yourself and start making the changes that you see fit to do.
I love it.
Once you have that awareness, it's a whole different game.
Mhm.
Now you're aware, now you can do something about it. And I would focus on that.
Very good.
Focus on self-love, spending time with yourself, starting to unravel those patterns. Look at whatever the pattern is, unravel where it came from, and then kind of pull it up at the root.
I
If
love
you
it.
can,
Pull it up at the root. Now, nurses, check in with your HR department for your EAP benefits, employee
mhm,
assisted program. A lot of people don't realize that you have several free, depending on your insurance, but a lot of insurance in these programs, they offer several free sessions with a counselor.
mhm,
So you can begin there and start having the conversations and know that there are resources for you. So, Shanekah,
absolutely.
where can our audience connect with you, learn more about the Infinite Healing Well, and begin their own healing journey?
Yes, ma'am. I am on all of the social medias. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And in each case, is Shanekah Polk.
All right,
Yes,
fantastic.
ma'am.
All right, so healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing the layers that kept you from becoming who you were always meant to be. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. Our mission is to inspire nurses to think beyond traditional career paths and recognize the value of their expertise, influence, and ability to create meaningful change in healthcare in their communities. You all take care. Thank you, Shanekah. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.